Hello and welcome back to the Solo RolePlayers Podcast. I am extremely excited today to get down and have a chat with arguably the most prolific solo-first RPG writer, probably definitely in human history, Alex T from BlackOath. Welcome to the show.
Hello, and thanks for having me.
Now, you are joining us today from lovely, sunny Madrid. I'm really glad that we could get this discussion together because I am dying, like I know a lot of my listeners and a lot of people in general are dying to know, what was your story into RPGs? How did you discover them? How did they get their hooks into you?
Yeah, so I started pretty early actually, and I can't even remember the year because I was like just a brat. It's the typical thing. I went to spend it was a sleepover at my cousin's, and I must have been like 11, something like that. And they had the red box, the Dungeons and Dragons original red box.
Nice.
90, 91, around there. And we didn't even know what it was. We didn't know what a role-playing game was. We just started playing it. We had fun. But it was just like a one-time thing. I forgot about it. And then clearly, this I remember clearly in 92, a friend in school, in middle school, he suggested to join some other guy he knew that he was organizing this Lord of the Rings game. I don't know. Well, of course, I was already into fantasy, science fiction literature by then, so it was like, of course, I want to play something related to Lord of the Rings. So this was the MERP game, the Middle Earth role-playing, the classic. And that was my actual proper introduction to role-playing games.
At this point, you're about, 12 years old?
Yeah, I was 12.
Or so.
Yeah.
You had that little introduction with D&D, but it was the Lord of the Rings that really grabbed you. What was that first, or do you remember what those first few play sessions were like? Were you GMing? Were you playing? What were they like?
No, I was definitely, all those first ones, I was the player for at least 2-3 years. I was just playing. I didn't GM until much later on. So initially we played a lot of MERP, like I said, but then we skipped around. We jumped around to Call of Cthulhu and the original Star Wars game, the D6 one. Yeah, it was just those 2 or 3 because that friend in particular, that he didn't have that many games. But then I moved and I met some other people, and then that's where we really got more into Dungeons and Dragons, the advanced Dungeons and Dragons we had, and Rolemaster, which was for me the of course already coming from MERP. Yeah, Rolemaster, the one they joke that it's just about charts and.
Okay, I don't know that.
You know Rolemaster. Oh, it's for me. It's I could say it's my favorite role playing game. It's kind of crunchy, but not really. I think people consider it crunchy because you have to be checking tables each time you roll for damage. You have to see if you hit, compare, but that's it. I mean, the core rule is just DO 100 rule set, and I don't know. For me, it's very elegant. It has a lot of character options, which is something I always I look for in games, and well, but that was just like our cornerstone, but which actually left it cost us to leave Dungeons and Dragons completely aside, because it was like, why would I play something with ancient magic? And I don't know, I was never a fan of ancient magic, and it felt lacking compared to something like Rolemaster, which is so expansive and so full of opportunities, both as a player and as a GM. And then, we jumped to all kinds of games, Vampire the Masquerade, Werewolf, all this Wall of Darkness little games that started to appear in the mid 90s. I don't know, we played a lot of Cyberpunk also, the original one. Yeah, I don't know. And then shortly after is when I started GMing, because our forever GM was tired of being the forever GM. And I got a copy of Stormbringer. I don't know if you're familiar with the one that it uses basic role playing. It's the same kind of rules as Call of Cthulhu, the Chaosium stuff. And I've always been an absolute fan of Michael Moorcock and all his work. And Stormbringer for me was another absolute game changer for me. And that's the game that I started GMing, and I haven't stopped since then, actually.
Wow. So you never had a break. You started at the age of 11. You had a break for 1 year, and then from 12 until forever, you've
No,
been
well,
playing.
no, I did have a break because in 2007 I moved to Norway, and so back then online gaming wasn't really a thing, at least for me. And so yeah, I had a few years there that I didn't play anything. I kept tabs on everything. I was still interested. I mean, it's role-playing games and board games in general are passion of mine, but I didn't really play for at least 5 years or more. Yeah, it was a few years that I didn't do anything. But then I discovered the world of solo role-playing games, and through that I actually got again into. I found my old group when I came back to Madrid.
Oh, nice.
I reconnected with my old group. We started playing again. So now I have this parallel thing of playing solo and playing with them twice a week.
That's so cool. But you said you discovered the world of solo role playing. What did that look like? What was the discovery?
Well, that was purely out of necessity because I was desperate, absolutely desperate to play something after so many years. And first I discovered that you could play board games alone. All the Shadows of Brimstone stuff. I don't know if you're familiar with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan. And that really opened a huge world to me. I discovered that you could play that sort of game alone, which was amazing. And
so mostly dungeon crawly sort of games then, or
yeah, it's been always my go-to. I enjoy that kind of games precisely because I was talking about before, the fact that I really enjoy character builds and character progression. If you see my games, that's always a core theme. I always like that you have a lot of character options, a lot of character progression. Yeah, so I always look for that in games when I'm playing solo. And from solo board games, I discovered that you could actually play role-playing games alone, which that completely blew my mind. It was like, what the hell? I discovered Mythic, but my first attempt with it was like, it was so different from what I was used to that it was like, no, this cannot work. I don't understand anything. My brain could not comprehend how it worked. So I took a step back and went back to simple dungeon crawlers like Four Against Darkness or the 100 Dungeon. Well, that's it. There was nothing else back then. And with that sort of stepping stone, I slowly moved into the world of solo games. I played Iron Sworn. This was, I don't know, 6 years ago. 6-7 years ago is when I started. Yeah,
Wow.
more 7 than 6 is when I started with all this solo. So yeah, back then you just had Mythic, Iron Sworn, and those couple of simple dungeon crawlers. There was nothing. But yeah, that was then after trying those couple of more simpler games, I went back to Mythic. I grabbed Forbidden Lands and played it with Mythic, and I was like, okay, now this clicks. This works.
Awesome. What do you think the difference was? What made it click for you the second time, do you think?
I think I was already into that mindset of having to improvise a little bit because I was trying to play like you would do a player, and I guess it's possible, but you kind of need a little bit of that GM mentality when you're playing alone, and I wasn't tapping into that, even though I'm the forever GM.
Yeah.
I was like putting it aside, and I don't know. Yeah, it was the gradual acceptance of how the flow must, the flow of playing alone goes, and the getting used to rely on oracles, and because I remember looking at the how's it called in Mythic, this chaos table.
The chaos factor.
Yeah, I was looking at that the first time. I was like, what the hell is this? How am I supposed to use this? But then the second time I came, it was, oh, okay, this is very simple. Can I use in this kind of situations? I use this other, and it just really clicked. Yeah.
Did your solo play, especially the Mythic style solo play, where you are doing a lot more GMing, or at least having that GM mentality more than some of the more procedural, mechanical driven games, did you find that your process changed after it clicked with Forbidden Lands, did you then continue playing and refine your own process, or you hit the nail then the second time and just stuck with it?
No, I think I really just stuck with it because it worked for me, and I refined it and changed a little bit once I started working into my own solo tools. I went into a little bit into my own direction, but it's still you can see the core of gameplay style of my solo tools it's clearly inspired by Mythic, and it's that kind of course, with all the support of procedural tools like you were saying, which I think is very important to have in a solo game, because that way you have to put on the GM hat less often. You could say you fall back into those procedures and they help you define and they point forward. Even having a kind of closed loop helps also, which is something I tend to add to my games. Like you do this and this and this and this, and you can come back. So you have when you don't know what else to do, when you are not in the mood to role play or to figure things out by yourself, you can always fall back to that core loop, and you'll have a flow for you.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point for people who get stuck, because I found that as well. And Forbidden Lands has a great, like, that has a good representation of that loop. And but also knowing that it doesn't mean you're locked into that loop.
Exactly.
You know, and trusting yourself to go off it when you feel like it and when it's cool.
Yeah.
But having that loop to be able to bring you back.
Yeah, I think there's an important balance there to strike between the two style of gameplays.
And it is really nice though, because it does allow you, like you say, sometimes you just feel a bit less like role playing, whether that's for a part of a session or for a whole session.
Yeah.
But if you've given yourself that permission, I think it really does make a difference that you can lean into and pull out of various aspects of it. You said that you started then developing your own solo tools. Why did you start doing that?
Well, as a forever GM, I was always writing stuff and designing towns and adventures, campaigns, whatever. Especially for Stormbringer. I mean, the binder I have with Stormbringer stuff was ridiculous. I had there a whole atlas of stuff. But so when I discovered 4 Against Darkness, I liked it, but it was a bit simplistic for my taste. And I thought, okay, this could use some overland exploration, or I don't know, a little bit of more more elements to it. So actually, first I wrote a hack, a 4 Against Darkness hack, which was I call it a 4 Against the Void. It was a science fiction hack. I added it was basically the same game flow, but I just added a little bit more stuff, and I was happy with it. So I sent it to Andrea, to the author, and he liked it, and he said that he would like to publish it, but the issue is that he had another guy working on exactly the same thing and with the same name. So I was like, come on. And he told me, well, what you can do, you two can work on it together. I'll see if he's up to it. And I don't know, there was a little bit of back and forth there, but I saw that it wasn't going anywhere. And as we can see, there's no game release call for Against the Void. So I guess it never really, went forward with that project. Yeah. But it made me realize that I could kind of design a game, even though this was a hack and I was completely following the same procedures and all that. So I wrote Disciples of Bone and Shadow, greatly inspired by 4 Against Darkness, but adding overland exploration, adding more character options. I don't know if you're familiar with that game.
What year are we talking here?
I think that was in 2018 or maybe 19.
Okay.
And so I was pretty happy with it, and I contact Exalted Funeral. I was talking with the owner, with Matt. This was before Exalted Funeral became the behemoth is nowadays. It was just Matt there in his free time doing a little bit of distribution. And back then he had only just released Witch Hunter, the first book of Luca Rejec. So he was kind of interested in finding other publishers, other books to publish. So I contacted him, and he loved it, and immediately he released it. And well, that's how
The rest is history.
that's how I became a developer, apparently.
Yeah, it's funny how that happens sometimes, the accidental paths
Yeah.
that life takes us on.
Yeah.
So you got that first one published. You are now published. What was there a gap then before you jumped into your next project, or you had ideas and you started
I
straight
didn't
away?
stop since then. I mean, it's been
You never stopped.
No, it's relentless, an obsession.
Yeah.
I'm a bit obsessive, and I just can't stop. I all the time. So immediately after that, I started working in the second game, which was Seekers Beyond the Shroud, which was more kind of inspired by Cult, and I don't know if the Swedish game Cult, about investigating occult circumstances in modern setting, and yeah.
So an investigation type game.
Yeah, but with a lot of I mean, it ended up being, as it is released right now, it ended up being basically a modern day dungeon crawler, because all the exploration and investigation stuff, which was more like Call of Cthulhu, that was part of the expansion, which they never actually got to release. They have it, but they never released it. I'm not sure why. So yeah, if you get the game right now, which I think you can still do, I'm not sure if they're still printing copies, but the PDF is for sure for sale. It's basically like a more complex dungeon crawler with a lot of occult stuff, modern day setting. But well, it has an interesting flavor, a bit unique, but it wasn't my whole vision. And after that, I worked on some small project. It was a little bit kind of an experiment, mostly at the request of my wife, because she's really into history and all that. And it was about the Cold War. So it's a small, we published a little bit. All this was working with Exalted Funeral. It's called Covert Wars. And yeah, it was that one actually wasn't solo. That was, I think, is the only non-solo game I ever released. And it was a small zine game, like 50, 60 pages, if I remember correctly, about the Cold War, being agents in the Cold War. I had plans for that one to add solo stuff and maybe change the setting, add a bit of supernatural elements, so I will have more fun with it, because it was a bit too dry for me. I'm a big child. But at the end, it just ended up in nothing.
At what point did you start to feel like a producer then, like an actual game author? Straight away when you got that first thing published, did you think, right, it's official now? Or were you always just sort of following these hobby drives and just pushing them out into the world and seeing what happened? Was there a point you started feeling like an actual game maker?
Yeah, I guess maybe once I started with the Patreon and really taking it more seriously, which was shortly after releasing, well, not really releasing because it took a lot of time, after working on Across 1,000 Dead Worlds, my dark science fiction RPG. And so then is when I really got into I mean, I was, like I said, I was already working constantly on games all the time, but I was still doing it part-time. I had my day job, so I couldn't really work on it like I'm doing now, completely obsessively.
Yeah, really down the obsessive rabbit hole with no job to hold you back.
Yeah, exactly. So the Patreon really pushed me forward and still does. It's fantastic, because I really like having that not really forced, but forced responsibility of having to release something for my Patreons every month.
Yeah, I feel you there.
Yeah, so having that constant push and drive, it's pretty good creative wise. Well, creative wise, I don't have a problem. I actually have too many ideas for games.
Yeah,
it's sometimes you get stuck into a part that is like, oh my god, this is so annoying. Like, I have a big problem with filling random tables. That takes me forever.
Yeah,
I'm really or writing scenarios. Oh my god, I'm so slow. I mean, I can write 50 pages of mechanics in a week, and the scenario will take me 2 months. I mean, it's horrible. I'm very slow. So when I get to those parts, it's like, well, I have to do it because these guys are supporting me. I need to do it for them. So it's good. So yeah, I would say that was the point when I said, okay, I think now I can call myself a designer, especially once I went full time with it, which was November 2023, actually. So a bit over a year now.
Yeah. At that point, so Across a Thousand Dead Worlds was my first awareness of your games, and the first one I got of yours. And it's such a beautiful product as well.
Yeah.
Really, really nice in the hands. I really love, you can just tell the love that goes into it, and having the little maps and the tokens and all that sort of stuff. Just really excellent. At that early point, I mean, I know you'd been making games then for a number of years already, but when you felt like you're doing it properly now, and you had the Patreon, what did success look like for you at that point? Like, what was your hoped or your vision of what success was? Was it just being able to work on it full time?
Yeah, definitely. For me, that was because I know a lot of people work part-time or not even that on role-playing games just as a hobby, hoping someday they will manage to get to that point. So it was an absolute blessing for me it was like, okay, I made it. My whole life wanting to do this kind of creative work, and I managed. So I'm grateful every single day I wake up, because I'm living the dream. It's a lot of work, especially since I do everything myself. It's a lot of responsibility, a lot of hours, but I cannot complain because I love it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's really, really excellent.
Yes. So I guess the next step will be to be able to hire people. I do hire, of course, I hire illustrators, I hire editors, not layout anymore, because I've been always working on layout. But for example, for Seekers Beyond the Shroud and Across a Thousand Worlds, I thought it would be interesting to have somebody else's vision for the layout for those games. But my experiences are not that great. I'm okay with layout myself. Like I said, I've been doing it for 20 years, something like that, or more even, actually. Yeah, more than 20 years. And so I know what I'm doing. So now I do that myself too. But in general, I like to hire people when I can, and I would love to have somebody on the payroll to be able to slowly expand things a little bit. So I was hoping this year, but I don't know. This year's been a bit difficult with all the changes we're having, economic changes, as you can.
Yeah.
Things are a little bit unstable. So yeah, sometimes I rely on for writing, so I can produce a lot on Richard Kelly, who is an incredible author. If you say I'm prolific, he's the next level. I think he releases a new game weekly or something like that. It's insane for years now. I mean, you go to his itch.io page, and it's hundreds and hundreds of games. He's very, very good, very creative, and he knows exactly what I need. Each time I tell him, okay, this is the game. He studies it in a week. He knows the game perfectly, and he does exactly what I ask him. So of course he's always credited in all my. So if you go to writing, if you see he's there, he's worked with me. So I tend to rely on him when I can afford it, because he's really good, and it allows me to publish more stuff.
Yeah, fantastic. Between Across a Thousand Dead Worlds and what I presume is the next big sort of bump on your resume of Caernarfon, what was that period like between those two games?
It was quite interesting from a creative point of view, because it's when I realized, well, first of all, Across a Thousand Worlds took me a very long time to write and to finish and to get right. It was like at least a couple of years, which is for me an insane amount of time. Yeah. and it was 2 years working all the time on it. Well, as much as I could. I like I said, I was still part-time. But yeah, it was a lot of working, a lot of play testing. I involved a lot of people, a lot of planification. So after that big project, I kind of assumed that it will be like that for me moving forward, because it was like, okay, if I want this level of quality and production levels and all that, I need to keep up with this kind of schedule and work ethic, or I don't know how you say it. I mean, that intensity, the same intensity. But I realized, well, it was of course, as usual, as it usually works with me. I reread Berserk, the manga. And
Yes,
yeah,
of
so
course.
I mean, I was an absolute
That
fan.
explains a lot.
I was an absolute fan back in the 90s and early 2000s. I loved it. But of course, the guy kept writing. Well, may he rest in peace now.
Yeah.
So I knew I was precisely, it was I think it was around his death. I said, oh shit, he died, and I missed a lot of years of his publication. I'm going to catch up. So it was funny because at that time also my wife, she was visiting relatives. I was alone the whole time. I spent 4 months not seeing anyone, basically just so I read it. I read a lot during that time. I didn't have anything better to do, and I think I finished the whole series in like a week, and that's a lot of, of pages. So of course I became absolutely obsessed, and I said, I need to make a role-playing game about this. I just need to. And I sat, and that's how I wrote Sacrifice in a month. I made it in a month. It was very minimalist, for especially coming from Across a Thousand Worlds. It was heavily inspired by Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Actually, you could take the monsters from one game into the other, and they work. I mean, they're perfectly compatible. But that game really made me realize, oh shit, I can actually make a half decent game, even though I realized it was very light. It was missing stuff for my usual standards. I said, this is actually playable. People are loving it, and it's a cool game. And I said, I'm going to keep at this rate. So shortly after I finished that, I worked on Path of the Aramthir, which was also using the same engine, very heavily inspired by Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Even though, like I said, I wrote that one. This must have been 2021 or 22. Yeah, 2022, I think. So yeah, 4 years ago already. I mean, 3 years ago, and it's been released just a few months ago. But well, you know how it goes with releases. Yeah, it's because this one I didn't release. It was Gallant Knight Games who released it. So of course it had to fit their schedule, their release schedule. I mean, they're a series publisher, so it took a couple of years for them to get it into their schedule. And immediately after that one, I also wrote in a month. I mean, I was like on a roll.
Yeah.
And shortly after that,
the berserk in your brain and the gothic tattoos just arriving on your arms, you know.
Yeah. So after that, I think it was Broken Shores. I think it was Rift Breakers, because I wanted a little bit something a bit lighter and different. That's when I started getting back into the I have to add more. And that one took me like 3 months to write, I think. And you can see, because that one has a lot of content. And well,
Broken Shores. This is
after that, Rift Breakers, and after that it was Broken Shores, I think. And then it was Carnezalas, I think it was right after that. I might be skipping something, but yeah, basically that. And then Carnezalas, yeah, like you said, it was really the big game changer for me.
Yeah, so that was really the big explosion point for you, was it then?
It was particularly thanks to a video of Geek Gamers that it just went viral. She doesn't understand to this day how it happened.
Yeah.
It's her most viewed video, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's insane. I don't know how much. It has thousands and thousands and thousands of views. And it just went viral. She says, I think one guy shared it on Facebook. That's the only, I think, because we were both like, what happened here? Why is this exploding? And fortunately, aside from exploding because of people being exposed to it, people actually liked it. And so.
Well, that's where I first became aware of your name, because I had 1,000 Dead Worlds before that. I think I might have had Sacrifice as well, but I just didn't make the connection of the author's name, you know. Sacrifice was interesting to me because I'm a big Dark Souls fan, also love Berserk and Kingdom Death as well. Yeah. And so that's what grabbed me on that one. And then across 1,000 Dead Worlds, just the art and the layout and the look of the book sort of excited me. And I didn't have a spacey sort of a game. But it wasn't until Kernathalis that I really started to understand your name and your style and how prolific you actually were. What was that like for you after it started becoming so popular? What was the experience like?
Well, it was fantastic actually. The Discord exploded. A lot of people started joining. A lot of people wanted to know about the game, and I'm always happy to help and answer all the questions I get, and because it's the least I can do, I think. As a, if my game isn't clear enough that you need to ask somebody, you better ask me. It's my job.
Right.
And it was amazing. Just a lot of interest, a lot of community building around the game, which was always my dream, to have people gather around one of my games and share stuff, share the stories, which is I absolutely love when people post their gameplay, either videos or just write-ups like this character's adventure in the dungeon, how he died, and I just love it.
That's
and
really
then
cool.
when they start creating their own aids and supplements and new masteries and domains, it's like, oh wow, this is so cool.
Yeah.
It's really humbling.
So it sounds to me, just getting to hear some of your background as well, with your D100 Rollmaster background and your solo dungeon crawling board games background and stuff, do you feel like Kernathalis was then almost the culmination of all that stuff that sort of got you into it? Is that me putting words in your mouth? That's what it sounds like to me.
No, definitely it was. I mean, like all my games, everything is I iterate a lot. It's small and increments and improvements. So the core game engine I use for Kernethalas is basically the same I use for Rift Breakers and the same I use for Broken Shores, but it was already like the third or fourth iteration. And like I said, D100 systems have always been my favorite ones. I mean, all the basic role-playing systems, Call of Cthulhu or RuneQuest, Warhammer Fantasy, I absolutely adore. And of course, like I said, Rolemaster, Stormbringer. It's always been my go-to if I can. D20 systems are fine, but I just prefer. They're also more intuitive, I think, especially for new players, because everybody understands or should understand how percentages work.
Yeah, it's absolutely.
Yeah, so it's just the core mechanic is very, very basic. You don't have to add anything. You just roll, and if it's less, there you succeed. Very, very simple to get across a new player. So
I found that too, and I actually only discovered, because I came very late into RPGs, and the very first time I encountered a D100 system was with League of Dungeoneers.
Yeah, I love it.
With that board game.
I have it over there.
Yeah. Shit, so big and heavy. These days.
I have the expansion. I have I'm all in for the game. I love it.
Yeah, me too. And I remember playing that for the first time and it just clicking. Actually, that's super simple. It's a percentage.
Yeah.
You can see what the percentage is. As it gets bigger, it gets easier to achieve.
Exactly. Yeah.
Super simple. Really, really cool. And you've just announced or released or have for pre-order the sort of new edition of Kernathalis, right?
Well, it's not
offset.
It's not really a new edition. I mean,
new printing.
When I ran the Kickstarter, I had the standard copies. It was just print on demand, so you could just get one of those. But I also made 100 copies of a limited edition. It came with a slipcase. It was very fancy, very nice, and people loved it. And they were asking all the time about it. And I said, okay, but I'm not going to do this again because this was a Kickstarter exclusive. I'm not going to screw over the people who actually wanted something exclusive. So I'm going to release a nice edition, but not as fancy, just bound in cloth without a slipcase, nicely put together. It's a printer from Belgrade. I've been working with them for years for some other projects, other stuff I worked on years ago. So I have very good relationship with them. It's a small printer. They do everything by hand except the actual printing, of course.
Yeah.
And all the binding is by hand. They're very, very, very a lot of attention to detail. I have a lot of I have very good communication with them. If they spot something, instead of many printers I've worked with over the years, and the standard is that when there's an issue, they just send it to you and it's like, fix it. This is your problem. And on top of that, many, they even charge you if there's an issue, even if you have to send it again. It's like, you're wasting my time. No, this guy say, okay, we found this issue. Here are the solutions. And they send me a lot of options, all already said. And so I just have to say, okay, this one. Yeah. And it's amazing. So those kind of little details really help me. I don't, it's one thing less I have to worry about. So I like working with them, and they are very good at small batches of books. So I decided to make an offset print run, which sold very fast, and now this is the second one, which is almost sold out also already, because I make like I said, just 100 copies at a time, so they sell very, very quickly.
Yeah, I was sitting there and had been hanging out. I'd been talking on Reddit a bit about Machine Gods, which we'll get to in a second. But I was sitting there the other day and doing some editing, and my phone popped and said, "Oh, you can pre-order both Machine Gods and also the cloth Cairnathalis edition." And so I think I was within 5 minutes of getting that email. I think I'd ordered them all. I'm a sucker for the cloth covers.
Yeah, it's
and it
nice.
means I can donate my old copy of Cairnathalis to my son now. So he'll be happy about that.
Yeah, and also the binding is better. You can open knowing that it's not going to fall apart.
Yeah.
And the paper quality is much better. You can see the illustrations as they are meant to be, because print on demand, I mean, it's serviceable, but well, we know it's not the best. So having such great art and properly printed is fantastic.
Yeah. Tell me a bit about Machine Gods and how that came about, because that seems to be collecting a fair bit of buzz as well. Yeah,
so that was basically me being irresponsible. Because I was in the middle of wrapping up the expansion for expansion standalone for Across 1,000 Worlds, which is called Across 1,000 Hollow Vaults.
Yes.
And I was getting close to finishing it, but then I got sick, like very, very, very sick at the early this year. I've never been so sick, a lot of fever. And of course, with fever comes fever dreams. And I spent the night obsessing about this weird setting. And when I got covered, when I recovered, it's like, I need to work on this. I need to get it out of my system. So I said, okay, on top of that, I'm going to make an experiment. This is going to be the lightest game I've ever written. And it's going to be, which is still kind of is, a Patreon exclusive, because I want to thank my patrons for their support, and I want also to incentivize people. I want more people joining, because Patreon is, as a creator, it gives me a lot of peace of mind, because I don't have to rely on sales. I have that fixed or relatively fixed amount every month, and it's like, okay, with this at least I can pay bills. I know I'm going to eat next month. Sales go up and down. You never know what's going to happen, but having that there, it's amazing. So I want to incentivize people from joining, and I want to thank all the people who've been supporting me there for years. It's an amazing community. I'm super grateful for their support. They're all amazing people. Have a lot of fun in our private Discord chat. There are a lot of crazy people there. And so yeah, that's how it came by. I just wrote it. I think I also finished it in like a month. But this one is a simple system. It uses a D20 system, very straightforward. It's all player facing, has very good, if I may say so myself, solo support. And since it's rules light and very sandboxy, it was relatively easy to write and to design. Yeah, and just looks stunning, like the art. Oh yeah, I found so evocative. Yeah, the art, and quite different. Yeah, Simone Tameta, which is the illustrator, he's so talented. He's usually known for his black and white art. I worked with him before precisely in Sacrifice, in the first edition of Sacrifice. I'm working on the second now. So he worked on the first one, and yeah, he's fantastic. And he usually does black and white, but then he started working on another project with Alan Barr, the designer behind Gallant Knight Games. He's a close friend. And he told me, look, I'm working with Simone on this stuff, and he showed me color illustrations. Like, what the hell? Simone can do color, and it's so good. And I said, I need to work with him. So I contact him, and he's always, oh yeah, of course, this is amazing. He's a very enthusiastic person. He's also very, very fast. Like he finished the
That
whole
helps.
book in 2 or 3 weeks. He finished all the illustrations. He just
Wow.
kills himself. He just sits, and until he's done, he doesn't stop. So it's fantastic. So that's why I'm releasing it so quickly. I wrote it in a month, and the month late after it was finished with illustrations and everything.
Wow.
The second book, the same. I wrote it in a month, and he was done for the next one. And I have the third one in the series already in the works.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
I really can't wait to try that one. The other thing I can't wait to try and hear a little bit more about is the 1,000 Dead Worlds, or across 1,000
Hollow Vaults.
hollow vaults.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so
It's not just an expansion, it is standalone.
yeah, I initially was just going to be an expansion. I mean, when I first started working on Across 1,000 Dead Worlds, I envisioned it as a core trilogy of books, even though there will be small releases in between. Like recently, I released Carbon Station Blues, which is a small setting.
I missed that.
Yeah,
I have to
actually,
find it.
that one I was talking about, Richard Kelly. He wrote that one. That one is
Okay.
completely his. I mean, I did the layout, but that's it. That's all, and the editing. But it's
Cool.
all his brain. It's very cool. Some people were asking for a more introductory scenario to the game, because the two that come with the book are fine, but they were written. I didn't write those. I were guest writers, and they were written from more of a traditional perspective, so it's kind of difficult to solo them.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of need a GM, so a lot of people are saying, yeah, they are cool, but I'm a bit scared of jumping into the game. It will be nice to have some introductory stuff. So yeah, this is basically how you arrive to Karum Station, new stuff to do there, and then you have a already pre-written site to explore, and well, so yeah, my plan was to release those 3 big chapters, and each one of them will have these smaller releases,
Mm-hmm.
and so they are like independent but still connected because it's the same universe. You can have the same character go from one chapter to the next one, but you could also start. You can now once I release the second chapter, Across 1,000 Hollow Vaults, you can start directly there and ignore the first one if you want, or you can take your character from the first one into the second one. But
Okay. So you're not really combining them rather than stepping between them.
yes, exactly. They
Ah.
are they are following and pushing they're moving the story of the setting forward. So in the first one, you are this deep diver in Karam Station, and you are just going on missions and all that. In the second one, well, this is a bit spoilery, but
PJ from the editing room here, and if you do want to skip past these little bits of spoilers, you can skip ahead a few minutes to 45:05. But it's cool.
anyway, it's going to be out in actually my Patreons already have access to it, so they can talk about it. So it's relatively known already by some people. But the second starts with you going on a mission, like always, but you crash land into some kind of gigantic artificial planet, and you die.
Whoa.
But there's some AI there, almost godlike, which captures an image of your brain before you die, and with samples from your body reconstructs you kind of. You're not exactly the same. You have some enhancements and some other changes. So you're basically living in a clone with your old memories. The cool thing is
Wow.
that you can now, if you die, you can go to your backup. In that sense, a little bit like a roguelike, video game. So when you die, you
That
go,
is cool.
as long as you are within the range of this AI. Because if you go outside of the range and you lose contact, if you die, you're dead. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you are dead. Not. I mean, you will still reboot into your clone, but it will be without the memories you recently acquired because you are outside of her range.
Wow.
So yeah, so the thing is that you crash, you talk to this AI who has rebuilt you, and it's like, well, okay, why did you rebuild me? Why did you resurrect me?
Mm-hmm.
And what it wants is to get out of there. So it needs your help to scavenge and to help it gather materials to build with the remains of your old ship, to build a ship to take it out of there. And that will connect to the third book, which will be you with this AI loosened in the galaxy.
That is so awesome. I think I'm going to have to put in a spoiler warning there, though. Edit one in, skip forward 2 minutes.
Yeah, but the second book is you exploring this gigantic artificial planet. It's the gameplay changes quite a bit. So it focuses on exploration.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, you have different sites, and you even have small communities of this synthoid creatures that live there. Some of them are conscious, sentient. Other ones aren't. I don't know. It's heavily inspired by, like always, like everything I do. I always have some big reference. I don't know if you're familiar with Blame, the manga.
No.
Oh man, that's
Blame.
Yeah. That's another one of my cornerstones when it comes to science fiction. That's one, the same as Berserk is for fantasy. Blame for me is for science fiction. So it's
awesome.
It's basically Blame the RPG, but with a different setting, because in Blame it's not about crash landing or being a clone or whatever. That's just to tie into the first game. But yeah, it's you're exploring randomly generated areas. The cool thing is that you are not completely human anymore, so you are part synthoid, so you can kind of absorb the powers of the creatures you encounter and add them to your and kind of create a build like that. So the game is about exploring and scavenging. You have that end goal of getting enough resources to rebuild your ship and taking Mother, as the AI calls itself, take it with you. But well, it's so big that you can definitely spend there hundreds of hours exploring and dealing with all the problems you have there.
Awesome. That sounds so cool. When can we get it?
Yeah, well, it should be already. I keep getting distracted.
Blame Machine Gods.
Yes,
right?
I'm very responsible. It was supposed to be already in Kickstarter now, but yeah, for this I've been moving away from Kickstarter because it doesn't make much sense usually for me, at least for medium or smaller games. I end up losing money always with taxes and commissions and all that. It's horrible. But for this game, I'm already several thousands deep into art. It has a lot. If you think the first book looks cool, the second one, it's spectacular. It has so good art. But yeah, good art is not cheap.
Yeah.
So I'm going to organize a small Kickstarter. I'm trying to keep it contained this time because the first one got out of control. It was a disaster. I don't know if you heard all the horror stories. I had
I missed it happily.
Yeah, well, it was horrible. Even death.
Wow.
So yeah, it was horrible.
Well, that's fitting. You know.
Yeah, but it was horrible. It was a very.
So sorry.
It was a very difficult process. I got screwed over several times by different people. It was very bad. So I'm trying to avoid that. It also happened because it grew. It was but at the time it was the largest game Kickstarter in Spain. I made 106,000 euros. And you say, oh my God, so much money. Well, I ended up losing money because of delays, people basically stealing from me. It was a disaster. So this one I'm trying to not rely on others, which is maybe business-wise is not very smart, but for my mental health, I think it's the best option.
That's important.
Yeah, and so I'm trying to...
Otherwise, you can't make games.
Yeah, to reduce the scope and maybe not release 3,000 books like the first time, limit it a little bit. And so I'm hoping I will have it in 2-3 months. It should come to Kickstarter. And the thing is that when I bring a game to Kickstarter, it's already written. I just get the funds so I can finish paying the art. I can recoup what I spent in art. But then once it's the Kickstarter funds, I immediately send over the PDFs, even if it's the artless version, so people can immediately start playing. And then once all the art comes in, then, well, they will get their finished books. But yeah, so hopefully before the summer's over, hopefully we'll have a playable version of the game in our hands. Let's see.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I am very much looking forward to that, as well as getting my cloth edition of Kenneth Arliss, digging more into that and into Machine Gods as well. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Alex. Where is the best place for people to find you and your stuff?
Well, the best option is always to go to my website, which is blackoathgames.com. There you have links to my usual social media. I'm not big on social media, but well, I lurk around. I have the basics covered, but I spent the whole day on Discord. So if anybody has questions, well, they can of course always contact me through email. Also, like I said, all my contact information is on the website. You have there the link to Discord, link to my email, social media. So I think that's probably the easiest way to contact me.
Yeah. And if you want to support the development of these absolutely fantastic games, do go and check out your Patreon, which is what? Where can they find your Patreon?
Man, I can't remember the name right. Well, the link is also on my website, like I said, blackoathgames.com. You have absolutely everything there. My Patreon is linked there as well.
Yeah, do go there. You are clearly someone who looks after their patrons and clearly someone who has earned the support of people out there, being, what was it I said, the most prolific game designer in the history, solo-focused game designer in the history of all time. And if you're one of my patrons as well, we will be having Alex T over in the Celebrity Lounge. I will tag at the end of this episode when that's going to happen once we've worked that out. But you, Alex, will be coming into the Celebrity Lounge, joining my Discord for 24 hours where people can tag you and ping you and ask you all the questions that their heart desires before we kick you out of the Discord server again at the end of the party. I really look forward to that one. Hang around for the credits and you'll find out when that is coming. And I really look forward to continuing playing your games and seeing what else that you bring into the world. Thank you so much for being on the show, Alex T.
Thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Yes, and thanks again to Alex T for joining me today on the Solo RolePlayers Podcast. As of the release, Alex will be in the Celebrity Lounge tomorrow, which is the 1st of May. He'll be there for about 24 hours or so, depending on how much chat is going on. Thank you for listening today, and I look forward to catching you again on whatever the next episode brings of the Solo RolePlayers Podcast. Bye.